Coming up next is Connery's second Bond movie and your favorite Connery Bond movie, and I think just one of your favorites in general, From Russia with Love.
From Russia with love.
With the incredible theme.
So the movie opens with James Bond going through this maze, this like hedge maze, and you're like very curious, like what is he doing? What mission is Bond on?
Yeah, unlike the first one, they're starting you out right in the action. At least as far as Bond is concerned, he's starting out right in the field.
Absolutely, and then you see him get murdered. He immediately gets killed.
Crazy departure from the book.
Absolutely,
honestly.
absolutely. And then you find out
character off.
It's a dummy. It's somebody wearing a James Bond mask. Spectre apparently has the budget to make masks that look exactly like James Bond.
Yeah. It's a funny detail. It's like, I get that they're showing the hatred that they have for him, but it's like, the guards aren't going to give a shit,
Absolutely.
They're going to kill to kill. They don't have a personal beef with James Bond.
No, but that sets us up for the plot of the assassination of James Bond by Spectre, which then we go to a chess scene where a Spectre agent named Kronstein, I do believe is his name. So Kronstein gets summoned to talk over this guy, talk about their plan to kill James Bond. So Spectre, which we talked about in the last movie, the evil organization, they're back. They're back and they're out for blood. Yeah. They want to take Sean Connery, James Bond, and they want to punish him for killing their operative, Dr. No.
Is this the first time that Bond really popped up on Spectre's radar?
I think it is. I think him killing Dr. No is what sets off them targeting Bond.
Yeah.
Because now
the first time he's viewed as like a huge enemy of
absolutely.
Spectre.
It's the first time he's directly interfered with their plans.
Yeah.
Which I think Spectre is going to be very important, especially throughout Sean Connery and I think Roger Moore and Daniel Craig's run. After the fall of the USSR, things get a little bit hairy and it's not really Spectre anymore. But through these original movies and through Daniel Craig, Spectre is going to be a big player throughout everything. So the plan is they're going to try to lure Sean Connery into a trap. James Bond into a trap. But with the promise of
they had to lure Sean Connery into a trap to get him back for the fourth and fifth movie.
That's true. So basically, what they're trying to do is they're promising. They're going to get a Russian agent to defect with a Lecter cryptography machine, which I think just decrypts things from, I would assume, from the USSR. The British would use it against the USSR, but the USSR is using it against the British. It's like Johnny Cash, decrypting things in World War II. That's what it is. It's essentially a machine that will do it for you. It'll do the code. And so what the thing is that the Russian agent does not know she's not working for SMERSH. So SMERSH is the Russian counterintelligence. So it's basically like the USSR's MI6, but not the KGB. That's different. And so their head a higher up was called Rosa Klebb. And she has defected now to Spectre. But the Russian agent, Tatiana Romanov, does not know that. So they're going to basically use the Russians and the British and play them off against each other and have Bond die. That's the plan, is they're luring him in with a young woman, electrocryptography machine, and it's just going to be blaming the USSR. So they're not going to even have their hand in it. They're going to just pass the buck to the USSR. So that's kind of the plan that Spectre sets up. So then we cut to 007. He receives a phone call while he's on a boating picnic with one Sylvia Trench. And From Russia with Love plays over the radio. It's diegetic sound, so they could hear it too. So in this universe,
the first diegetic Bond song?
I think it is.
Yeah.
Especially because, as we'll find out in Goldfinger, Sean Connery, or not Sean Connery, but James Bond doesn't really like where music is headed in the 1960s. So for the first time, we hear From Russia with Love, which is my favorite Bond song, sung by Matt Monro. And he gets a phone call that MI6 wants him to come in. He wants him to, he has a new mission, so he has to come in. So Sylvia convinces him that no, they're gonna sleep together in the boat on the banks of an English river, and then he'll go in. So he puts off MI6 for a little bit, and this is the last we see of Sylvia Trench, Bond's girlfriend.
Yes. Another thing that was parodied by Austin Powers.
That's so true. That's so true.
His girlfriend becomes a fembot.
Yes. Yes.
I wonder. I know people were like upset by that in Austin Powers, which is hilarious. A character choice in Austin Powers set people off.
Yeah.
But I wonder if that same emotion was true here with Sylvia.
My guess is no, because she only appeared at the very beginning of Dr. No to sleep with Bond and flirt and sleep with Bond.
Yeah.
And then he sleeps with like
connection.
Yeah. Then he sleeps with 2 other people, whereas in Austin Powers he only sleeps with Vanessa.
Yeah.
And it's only at the end after he goes through like some character building and she's like, I need you to be like the man I want you to be, or like you need to be. And so like there's character building, there's growth.
It's a little bit different.
There's more growth than in a Bond movie, you know?
There is. It's interesting that they did the Sylvia character better in the parody movie.
Absolutely. Well, I feel like Vanessa's more the Honey Rider character.
She is, yeah. They kind of Sylvia, just married those two characters. Sylvia's like the girl waiting back home.
Yeah. I think Vanessa's more of a Tracy.
I could see that.
Vanessa's more of a Tracy.
Yeah.
Which we'll get to Tracy later.
Yes, we will.
But for now, we are saying goodbye to Sylvia Trench. So he gets told that there's this Russian lady who wants to defect, and she can promise the UK a Lecter cryptography machine. And he gets shown the picture, and obviously he's like, oh, this is an attractive young woman. And M forces him to give the picture to Moneypenny, and Bond cheekily writes, "From Russia with love." So we get our title call back.
Yeah.
So Bond arrives in Istanbul, which I have been to the Istanbul airport. I have not been to Istanbul, the city itself, but I have been to their airport. It's chaotic. So Bond arrives in Istanbul, and he meets up with the MI6 agent there, or the head of the like organization in Istanbul, which is Ali Kerim Bey. Ali Kerim Bey is a Turkish man who uses his sons as his like operatives, and he's just kind of like keeps an eye on everything in the region for MI6. And James Bond soon finds out that the Cold War is not so cold in Istanbul, because it's kind of an East meets West fusion. Both the Russians and the Western powers all have their embassies there. It's kind of like Turkey itself is like a bridge from east to west. And so it's kind of reflected in like the Cold War situation there, because Bond's being tailed by like 3 different people. He doesn't know who to trust. Again, like the who to trust aspect comes back into it, but on like a little bit of a lighter scale, because he's met by Kerim Bey at the beginning, so he knows he's like a good guy. So
and it's honestly kind of, it's like Bond is networking through these movies too. And this web of spies and people who are in or at least benefiting MI6, Bond is starting to learn who those people are. And Absolutely. So you're kind of seeing Bond build these relationships that would be, some of them series-wide relationships, but, for some of them too, it'd just be throughout Connery's run as this character. But it's really cool to kind of see Bond figuring out the ropes as he dives deeper into this world of espionage.
Absolutely. At the same time, Bond is being tailed by somebody, specifically this Spectre assassin called Grant. And we see Rosa Klebb pick him out from like a training camp that Spectre has of assassins. So James Bond and Kerim Bey, like he's like showing him around Istanbul. He shows him like there's like cisterns under the city that the Byzantines used to like hold water and stuff, and you can just sail on them. And Karen Bay shows him that he has a periscope installed into the Russian like consulate so he can see what's going on. He can't hear, but he can see. And Bond sees Tatiana for the first time. And it's just kind of like just like how the Cold War is in Istanbul, which I've already kind of mentioned. And then Karen Bay's office gets blown up. Which luckily he was over on the Cité because his mistress called him over because he was like ignoring her. And luckily she calls him away from his work just in the nick of time.
Saved by the mistress.
Saved by the mistress. So after that, Bond and Karen Bay decide to go hide out in a Romani camp, which in this movie they use the term gypsy, which is a slur. I guess the Romani people, especially in Europe, it's not as well known in America that it is that because we associate it with like the kind of free-spirited hippie movement and like Stevie Nicks and stuff like that. But in Europe, it is considered a slur against the Romani people.
Yeah.
Sidebar, not to be the woke police.
Yeah.
But that's something that's one thing that hasn't aged well in this movie.
Yeah.
Especially because two of the women are fighting over who's going to get married to the chieftain's son.
Yeah.
And it's like it's two women in brown face.
Yeah.
And they're fighting each other.
Yeah.
And so they're at this camp. These women are fighting each other. Bond wants it to stop. And then the whole camp gets attacked by the guy who is trying to assassinate Karen Bay, and they end up like fending him off. And Grant kills somebody who's going to kill Bond. So this guy, so the assassin that's going to kill Bond keeps like saving Bond until he gets him lined up for the plot, because their plot is very specific. Because obviously it was solved by a chess grandmaster. So each piece has to be specific. That's kind of like the theme of this. Not the theme, but like it's kind of how this movie is structured. It's like chess pieces on a board, which makes sense because that's who the villain like plot.
Yes, yeah.
Is.
And him being so anal and like almost like OCD, like him wanting everything to fit in a perfect place. Like he's got to be in control of everything. And it's almost to his own detriment because he's like almost looking too closely at where all of his pieces need to be.
Absolutely. So they run the guys off the Romani camp, and they end up having Bond decide who the girl is going to marry, which girl is going to marry the chieftain's son. And so basically he just has two wives for the next 3 days. You can imagine what happens in the camp with two wives who have to prove themselves as wives. This is where the misogyny kind of steps in too.
Yeah. We're bouncing from one thing to the other.
We are. Like that is, it's From Russia with Love is, I would say, I think my favorite Bond movie. But
and these are some of the reasons why.
These are some of the reasons why. I think, but it's also one of the most problematic Bond movies, I think. It is both very good, and I love the spy and the aspects of it and the pieces all falling together, and Bond trying to figure this out, and just everything that happens is really cool and neat, and there's some really good chase scenes and stuff. But there's also some very, very problematic things that happen in this movie. But yeah, like I said, these movies are just like a time capsule of what was acceptable in the time period. And to watch it from that sort of perspective, it's good to remember how it used to be. I think it's good to remember how it used to be, just to see, just so we don't forget that this is how it was accepted. It was normal.
Absolutely. It's kind of like the way that Warner Brothers handles it. I really respect the way that Warner Brothers handles things whenever they do re-releases of old cartoons or old movies. If there's things that are problematic in it or haven't aged very well, there's always a disclaimer at the beginning where it's like, hey, exactly what you said, where these are things that are unfortunately within this piece of art, but taking it out would lessen the art itself and would also be a way of sweeping that stuff under the rug. It's better to face it head on rather than pretending like these weren't things that happened.
Absolutely. And I know we've discussed this like in the future when we have children and we show them these movies. Like I feel like we're going to use it as like a teaching moment.
Sure.
Of like,
absolutely.
This is like how it used to be. this is just it's the Mad Men episode where Roger does blackface.
Yeah,
It is something that was in the culture at the time, and I think it's an important thing to learn about and to remember. And
yes.
it does detract from the movie a bit, but it opens up conversations to be had around these movies.
It does. It does. It kind of makes it more interesting, even if it, like you said, even if it taints the movie itself a little bit.
Yeah.
It opens up a dialogue that's like really interesting about like movies in general,
Yeah.
and culture in general. And so it's kind of, I don't know, it adds complexity to this movie in that way, I suppose.
Yeah. And there have been people in the past who have worked to recontextualize these films and to just like preserve film history in that sort of way. I know TCM, when they played Gone with the Wind, or the last time they played Gone with the Wind, they had a historian come on before the movie and give like a little lecture about Gone, like setting the historical setting for the movie, but also the time period, and talking about all that stuff and how that went into making the movie. Just acknowledging it, talking about it, I think is just
it's the best thing
way,
you can do.
The best thing you can do about these kind of things.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's shying away from it or beating around the bush is not the way to go. And you really, you're not talking about the movie unless you're looking at everything. So.
Absolutely. So there's bad stuff in Bond. It's racist. It's misogynist.
Yeah, you heard it here first.
You heard it here first. But it is part of this movie, and we shouldn't forget that it's within our like parents and grandparents' lifetimes.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, not everything's controversial in these movies. It's not all doom and gloom. There's definitely fun to be had. I mean, as Alyssa mentioned before, this is one of, if not her favorite James Bond movie, and it's definitely up there for me. And I think because this movie, it's really entertaining because it does what a lot of good sequels to these big movies do, these big tentpole movies. It takes what worked so well in Doctor No, and they just up the ante a little bit. I mean, I think everything takes a step up in this film. I think Bond feels a lot more comfortable in this role. Not that he's by any means bad in Doctor No or anything, but Sean Connery feels like a more well-defined version of Bond in this. I feel like his relationships and his chemistry with all the other supporting characters is stronger. And then the action just really takes a step up. You mentioned you briefly mentioned the train scene, and we'll get back to it later. But I think that's a good example of this. I think the fisticuffs and like the hand-to-hand combat really take a step up in this movie. And they make Bond seem like a much more of a well-worn hero. He feels like kind of a veteran in this world where it's like he's been doing this for a long time. And it just feels like a stronger Bond movie. I think the argument could maybe be made that with any of these movies, really, I mean, to each their own, but it could be made the argument that Dr. No is maybe like the best of the Connery movies. It's like most well made. It's not my favorite personally, but I think that it's definitely true that these following movies, this and Goldfinger especially, I think are stronger Bond movies, and they feel a lot more at home with what would come later.
Absolutely. Now on to something way more fun. Assassinations and sex tapes.
Yes, yeah.
So James Bond and Karen Bay killed the guy who attacked them and who was like attempting to like kill Karen Bay throughout this whole time. And then James Bond goes back to his bedroom at his hotel.
He's gonna go home and like, relax, do a little 00 R&R.
Which he does a lot of, actually.
He does.
He does do a lot of R&R as James Bond.
He's lazing about every now and again.
Absolutely. More than other Bonds, I feel.
And he's wanting to go home, take a nice bath, maybe sit in the sauna for a bit.
Yeah.
But
to surprise, he discovers Tatiana Romanov is in his bed in a clandestine state, so to say.
Yes. She is buck naked.
Yes, except for her choker necklace.
Except for the choker necklace. Which you mentioned a little something about chokers to me.
Yes. Before. In art history, like in France, like around the Impressionism time, chokers were often used to denote prostitutes in art back in the day. So if you see somebody wearing a choker in art from like the 1800s in France, you can well assume it's probably a prostitute.
Yeah, Now, was that they were using models as prostitutes, or were they using prostitutes as models for their art?
I think it's a little column A, a little column B, because ballerinas were also like prostitutes as well.
Yeah,
For the most part, it's just what happened when you got men in control and they're gonna fund these things. They're gonna kind of it's like a twisted family opera. Like it was
yeah,
like worse in real life than what the family opera is.
yes, yeah. That is interesting though to imagine prostitutes being used as models for painting. Like, can you imagine if you're a prostitute and you get called off the street
They
and
probably loved it.
so yeah, and then someone just is like, hey, I'll pay you for 3 or 4 hours, and you go
Absolutely.
back to their place, and next thing you know, you're sitting down and you're getting painted.
Yeah, I mean they probably really enjoyed it. Like
Yeah,
probably the easiest money they
right. A
had to
nice
make
reprieve from
their
the
work.
typical fare.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, like I said, even ballerinas, like all those Degas paintings,
Yeah.
they were most like it, and you could see it in the paintings. Like the old guys are creeping on the ballerinas. So
Yeah.
yeah, not that Degas was like a champion for women though. He was kind of awful.
He's doing a little creeping himself,
He
I'm
was doing a
sure.
little creeping himself. They think he might be Jack the Ripper.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
I've seen theories about it, like people putting together the pieces that he might be.
Do
Jack
you
the Ripper.
think that theory holds any water?
I think it's interesting. I can believe it.
Yeah.
But I kind of I fall into the camp where like every Jack the Ripper theory I kind of believe. Like H.H. Holmes is another one that they kind of theorize could be Jack the Ripper.
Yes.
My long lost cousin.
Yeah,
And
you're a relative long removed of Jack the Ripper.
Absolutely.
Or of H.H. Holmes.
Maybe Jack the Ripper.
Maybe
Jack the Ripper.
Maybe.
But I feel like every Jack the Ripper like case closed thing I read or like see like the theories, I always believe them. Maybe I'm just a gullible person.
Well, it's funny because in our video together, when we were talking about long legs, we made a joke about you having similar music taste to long legs.
I know.
Alyssa has literal serial killing blood in her family line, so the evidence is stacking up, and it's looking pretty damning. My days are numbered.
Anyways, so Tatiana's there and she starts to like seduce Sean Connery.
Yeah.
And it ends up like he wants to get the information before he sleeps with her because that's how he is. He stands on business first,
He does.
He needs to get his info.
As we were putting together some information and doing some research for this video, I stumbled upon a post, or it was like a discussion piece or something. I forget exactly where I found this. They were comparing Bonds of different eras, but specifically comparing Sean Connery to Roger Moore. And they were saying Roger Moore is like, his Bond version of Bond feels like a gentleman who was trained to be a thug or thug-like. And Sean Connery's Bond feels like a thug who is trained to be more gentlemanly.
And then there's that one Roger Moore Bond movie where he like acts more like the Sean Connery Bond. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it was Octopussy.
I think so.
I think it was Octopussy. And it was like weird. I didn't like it. It was like
it didn't quite fit him.
Yeah. Like it's one of his worst.
We'll touch more on that later, but it is interesting to see kind of the, I don't know. He's definitely this Bond above any. Maybe Craig would be the most comparable. Is very gray morally.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's moments where you're like, oh, okay, he is the hero, but I don't know if I can support him with what he's doing right now.
And I think that just goes to show like spy work in general is kind of a gray area too.
Yes, absolutely.
Like, I mean, you're working for your country, but like at what point is that like a good thing or a bad thing?
Absolutely.
Which honestly we explore more in Craig. Yeah. It all leads back to Craig.
Yes. Yeah. It is cool, like little like elements and the little seeds that were planted here become whether intentional or not, become later ideas that were further explored down the line.
Absolutely.
And it's really neat to see that. It's like, oh, okay, hey, we kind of implemented this thing here. Let's go back and explore that deeper.
Yeah.
And I feel like Craig is definitely it's probably returning to Connery in a more like introspective way. So it'll be interesting to eventually get there with these videos.
Absolutely. And then so after he gets the information, they start to make love.
Yep.
And then it pans, and we see that there is a double-sided mirror, and they are being recorded.
They're being recorded.
And there's like 3 guys in the room.
There's 3 guys back there. I don't understand why there needed to be 3.
Yeah, there was just like
really, you just need the one guy to hit record.
Yeah,
right?
Well, it was an old like crank camera, so he was like cranking it.
Yeah, well, I'm sure one of them at least was cranking it while watching that.
Probably. It really, honestly, that scene feels like an X-Files episode, because I think one guy's smoking too, so it feels like the cigarette smoking man is like watching over them, observing.
That is funny. Yeah, what could three guys learn from sex?
Well, they're setting up some sabotage, some blackmail for sure.
They are.
So we end up seeing Tatiana and Bond go to like the Hagia Sophia, and she gives them the blueprints for the Russian consulate so they can like plan their entryway. And then he meets up with her again on a boat ride, and she like talks into a speaker, and she's like trying to seduce him while also like telling him the info that he needs. And it's like a speaker, or like a recorder, but it's like disguised as a camera. And anyways, Moneypenny gets kicked out of the room because it's too uncomfortable for her to hear around other men.
Yes. Yeah.
So like that's what we're dealing with right now. Tatiana seems completely bespotted, and you don't know how much of that is like training and how much of that is like her actually feeling this way about Bond. Because that was her mission, is to seduce Bond and, you know, make him believe that she's in love with him and to listen to him.
Yeah, it's the classic falling in love on the job. You're breaking the golden rule.
Absolutely.
It's uncertain at this point whether or not that's what's actually happening here with her.
Yeah, absolutely. So we flash forward a little bit because all that espionage stuff is happening. They're planning stuff out, and they end up stealing the Lecter. They blow up the Russian consulate. They get the Lecter cryptography machine, and then they escape on the Orient Express with Karen Bay. So the 3 of them are now on the Orient Express, and there may be a murder.
One thing's for sure, though. James Bond is going to be having enough martinis to fill the Nile.
So they're on the Orient Express, and they realize they're being followed by the Soviet agent, who obviously they have Tatiana with them now, who is in their eyes defecting, and so it's like they got to keep her safe, so they got to like neutralize the Russian threat.
Yeah.
So they end up capturing the Russian, putting him in the room with Karen Bay. Karen Bay's got a gun on him, and he's just going to tell him his life story, because that's who Karen Bay is. He's like a talker. He's a talker. Yes. And so they both get murdered by Grant, though, and he sets it up to look like they killed each other. So, you know, Grant is the real, because he's been tailing them too. He's been tailing them the whole time, as we've discussed. So Bond discovers Karen Bay is dead, and they miss their jump-off point, where they're supposed to get off the train, and Karen Bay's son is supposed to take them. So they meet with another one of Karen Bay's sons in the next stop.
Yeah.
So once they're there, they get instructions that this guy Nash is going to meet them at the even next stop, and he's an MI6 agent, and he's going to like help them with the new plan, and they're going to escape that way. So they go to the next stop. Grant has overheard everything. He kills Nash, takes his place, and then immediately insults Sean Connery, and he just hates this guy off the bat because he calls him old man.
Yeah. Yep.
Old man. Just it's like, oh. That's weird, because Sean Connery's like not that old. He's like in his 30s.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, okay, that's weird.
Yeah. It's kind of like that young blood, that new blood that's being brought into the field, and he's immediately challenging Bond's masculinity, which of course Bond is not gonna take well to.
Yeah. And so already he's suspicious of this guy. And then at dinner he ends up like ordering white or red wine to go with his fish, which, as everybody knows, red wine does not go with fish.
No. Big no. You need a white wine.
You need a white wine. And so he's just like, okay, well, you're obviously like somebody who's not Nash. You are obviously not the right person.
He thinks he's hot shit, but he's not even cold piss. You know what I'm saying?
That was a very odd thing to say.
It's gonna catch on.
What an odd thing to say.
So he ends up and so Bond watches him drug Tatiana too. He like does not care. That's the level of Bond we have right now, is he just does not care if Tatiana lives or dies.
Yeah.
Like, she's fun to be with, but like He's gonna ditch her as soon as they get to England, anyways.
Which is crazy because she has gone, at least is presumably at this point, has gone against her original mission and is falling for him and is willing to risk it all, really,
Absolutely.
for James Bond. And that it is not reciprocated.
No, absolutely.
The feeling is not mutual.
Yeah, and they make her like really dumb for some reason.
Yeah.
Which is weird because she's like supposed to be really smart.
Right. It's like, how did you get that job?
Yeah. Like she was like the only one let into like the only secretary who was let into like high level like conferences.
Yeah.
She was the only one allowed to be there. So like, how did you get this? Like she had to be smart to get the job.
Yes.
So I don't know why they just decided to like make her dumb halfway through the movie.
Yeah, surely she couldn't have bumbled her way.
Yeah.
Through that many years of work.
Yeah, absolutely. And like she's part of like the Soviet, like she's like literally like been trained and shit. So I don't know.
It's odd. Yeah, it's like her character changes drastically towards the end. It's
absolutely
very strange.
It's very strange. Then they get drug Tatiana back to their carriage, and they immediately start the fisticuffs. He reveals the evil plan, which is like he's going to kill Bond and Tatiana and then plant a fake letter written by Tatiana saying like that he broke up with her and that she had the sex tape, and then so he killed her because she was going to release the sex tape, and then he like killed himself out of shame, I think is like what the plan is.
Yeah.
But then, you know, Sean Connery overcomes it all and beats up Grant in the train car.
Yeah. It's very bold of them to assume that Bond would be ashamed of a sex tape being released.
Absolutely. Like the dude is like, this is like what?
This is just like, Wednesday day.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Which the fight in the train is incredible. I love it. They're restricted to this small space where it's like everything is tight. I mean, if you've been in a train, you know each room is very limited in space. So they're having, you know, they're bumping elbows into walls. They're having to be careful not to hit the ceiling and stuff. And it's just, they're having to pull their punches. They're not able to do full swings or anything. So I love fight scenes like that where it's like they're being held back by their own environment. It reminds me a lot of that scene in Raising Arizona where John Goodman and Nicolas Cage are fighting in Nick Cage's trailer, and they're like knocking open windows and they're like hitting their elbows against the linoleum, and at one point like holds his fists up to drop down and on his chest, and he scrapes his fists on the asbestos ceiling and stuff. So I love scenes like that where it's like characters are really restricted by where they are.
So he ends up kicking Grant out of the car and like out of the window of the train, and he dies, presumably. Yeah. Then he wakes up Tatiana with a little slap. And he gets her off the train too, and they end up following Grant's escape plan. So they end up in the back of this like flower truck. They get chased by a helicopter, and then they get the boat chase. So there's a big old boat chase where the Spectre agents are coming after them. There's barrels getting set on fire, and then they make their way to Venice. The whole boat sequence and like going to Venice really reminds me of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. I feel like they took a lot of inspiration for that movie. Obviously, a lot of Indiana Jones was inspired by James Bond, which is why they hired Sean Connery to be Henry Jones Sr. And I think it was just that one specifically was really inspired by From Russia with Love because of all like it's like not references.
There's a lot of world travel.
Exactly. There's a lot of world travel. There's a lot of overlap in places they go.
A big chunk of the beginning takes place in Venice.
In Sleep with Elsa in Venice. Yes. So it's like
heavily implied that his dad did the same thing.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, she talks in her sleep.
Yeah. They were just sleeping.
No, they weren't. So anyways, they go to Venice. And they think everything's okay, and they're getting ready. We go to their hotel room, and they're getting ready to kind of leave and take the Lecter to MI6 and all that stuff. And who walks through the door but Rosa Klebb, the Spectre agent. Number 3, I think she is.
Number 3.
So she comes in. She's been ordered. So Kronstein, the mastermind behind the original plan, got killed because his plan failed. So she gets sent in just to do a good old fashioned like take out this guy, a good old fashioned assassination. So she comes in. Obviously, she orders Tatiana to like grab the Lecter and go, because the plan was also to sell the Lecter back to the Russians. So like everyone would be happy at that point. So Tatiana is like torn between the love for James Bond and her love of country, and she ends up leaving with the Lecter, and Rosa Klebb has Bond at gunpoint. I know, right? Tough situation to be in.
Tough situation.
And then all of a sudden, Tatiana just comes back through the door, takes out Klebb, and then knocks the gun out of her hand. And then Connery's able to like hold her back with a chair, like a matador in a bowl.
Yeah.
He holds her back. She's got like a poison tip shoe. She's like a spike on it with like a poison tip on it. So she starts kicking at him. And then Tatiana ends up shooting her. What you say? And so they are now safe from Spectre.
Yep.
And after that, we cut to them in a gondola going down the canals of Venice, and they're kissing, and Sean Connery slowly unravels the sex tape and throws it behind him. While From Russia with Love plays over the credits.
Beautiful.
It's
a great ending.
It's a good ending.
It's really solid. And man, the theme is incredible too.
Absolutely. So the theme, of course, is From Russia with Love, sung by Matt Monro. So the opening sequence is like kind of the first where you get kind of the more suggestive dancing.
Yeah.
Because it's projecting the credits over top of a belly dancer.
Yep.
And she's doing her belly dancing moves, and she's dressed pretty scantily. And so that's kind of like projected over that. And it's making reference to everything that happens in Istanbul with the Romani and stuff like that. And they actually play an instrumental version of From Russia with Love at the very beginning. And it's not, you don't hear the full song until the end credits. You hear a little bit in that diegetic scene where they're listening to it on the radio.
Yes,
but you don't
more of
hear
a tease.
it. Exactly. Until the very end.
Yeah.
So this is going to be the last Bond movie that opens with the instrumental.
Yeah, that's a good point. I wonder what the decision was on that. If they went in with knowing that they were going to have the theme play in the credits, or if they decided, later on that it was going to be instrumental. I don't know.
I'm not sure where that decision was made, because the next one, Goldfinger, obviously is, I think, peak Sean Connery Bond.
Yeah.
And so like that one has it, and I think that one just kind of just set the mold for the rest of the movies.
Yeah.
One, all the pieces came together in Goldfinger.
The intro felt like it was informed by Dr. No. They're like, well, we had an instrumental at the beginning. Well, let's do that again.
Absolutely.
And it maybe wasn't until Goldfinger that they figured to use the full vocal version.
Yeah, and maybe just Shirley Bassey, just like they couldn't deny that song should be played over the credits.
Yes, yeah. How do you not open with that?
Absolutely.
It's pretty incredible, which we'll definitely be talking about soon.
Absolutely. So let's get to some cast members.
Yeah.
So we have for director again, Terrence Young. He comes back from Dr. No to do From Russia with Love, which is kind of cool. That's really interesting.
And it's neat, too, to see not only did the series grow from the first film, like I was talking about with just everything, they really upped the ante on all the elements here. But it's cool to see that it wasn't just the series itself. It was singular growth. We got to see Terrence Young grow as a filmmaker in between these two movies, and that was really neat.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously we have Sean Connery as James Bond, Pedro Armendariz as Ali Karim Bey, the head of MI6 Station T in Istanbul, which he is a classic Mexican actor. He was in a lot of like golden age Mexican cinema films as well as American. He was in like a lot of westerns.
Okay, yeah.
So that's kind of his, and this was the last movie he was ever in. So while he was filming this, he was actually dying of cancer.
That's really sad.
It is.
Wow.
And he worked until it was too painful to work anymore. So some of the scenes they used like a double for his character. So that's very unfortunate.
That is. Oh, man, that's a shame.
We have Lottie Lenya as Rosa Klebb, Spectre number 3. I was right about that. I wrote it down in my notes. As the former SMERSH colonel turned Spectre operative. Robert Shaw is Donald Grant, the assassin. and the Heavy for this one. I feel like this movie really introduces the Heavy into the series too.
Yeah.
Because I feel like Dr. No didn't really have a Heavy. And then of course we have Bernard Lee as M, and Lois Maxwell as Miss Moneypenny, and then Daniela Bianchi. I'm gonna say it that way as Tatiana Romanov. I think it's Romanova actually. I could be saying her name wrong this entire video, but whatever. It's okay. So she's gonna be our main Bond girl. A couple Bond girls in this are gonna return later on. So some of the smaller roles are gonna be Karen Bay's girlfriend is gonna come back, and Martine Beswick, who plays one of the fighting girls.
Okay.
She's gonna come back in another Bond film too. So it's really interesting. They really reuse a lot of Bond girls.
Yeah.
Which is kind of fascinating. Like some of the like smaller characters, so they might get a bigger role in the next movie. So you have your main Bond girls, and then you have your side Bond girls.
Yeah.
The main Bond girls, who's gonna usually get captured with him in like the third act, and who's gonna like end up with him at the end of the movie. And then you got there's usually like one at the beginning that he usually sleeps with, and then someone in the middle who's kind of like an operative usually for the other side. And so like you got kind of like multiple Bond girls going on. You always have like at least one bad Bond girl and one good Bond girl.
Yeah.
Your life expectancy isn't that great as a Bond girl, but it's not like
it can vary.
It can vary. It depends on who you are before you meet Bond.
Yes. If you're sleeping with the enemy, you're probably gonna die.
Yeah, but if you're not, you're gonna make it to the end of the movie. But depending. Potentially. That's not always the case. But
not always the case.
Most of the time, I would say you're gonna make it to the end.
Yeah.
This was the last movie JFK saw before his assassination. From Russia with Love James Bond was his like favorite book series, and From Russia with Love was his favorite book, and they screened it at the White House literally, I think like days before he went to Dallas.
Didn't they screen it early too?
Yeah, they screened it early for him. So this is the last movie JFK saw before his assassination.
Wow. That's crazy. It's a good one to go out with.
It is.
I mean, there are worse movies to have your last,
As your last, I suppose, yeah.
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 Like, imagine if your last movie was Porky's or something. That'd be a bad way to go.
It would.